webinar that we are organizing by the Moratuwa University of Textile Association. And the topic of today's webinar is the power of networking and ecosystem development, which help us to go on an entrepreneurial journey. So today we have a moderator who is a product of Moratuwa University Apparel and Textile Engineering Department, who is himself an entrepreneur. So he's the co-founder and the director of Generation Epsilon Private Limited, and a senior inventor and a gold medalist at Geneva Inventions. So I would like to invite our moderator, AYMAN FIROUZE, to take on the webinar.
Thank you, Nimesh. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm AYMAN FIROUZE. Today we have a special guest, that is Dr. THARINDU ATHAUDA. He's the one of the key resource person for our department. He has completed his PhD in University of Melbourne, Australia. His research areas are RFID antennas, and he having an interest in startups and tech development, and complement his knowledge in expert in e-textiles, digital fashion, wearable electronics, thermal regulation, heat tech, motion tech, sensor tech, including some low-cost wireless sensor development. And he holds the position of EMC sales engineer at EMC Technologies, Melbourne, Australia. And he's primarily responsible for the product compliance related business development in Australia and New Zealand, with his expert knowledge in Europe and North American markets. He also provides the duties of technical sales, quotations, and delivering on-demand product compliance consultations. In addition to that, he also works as a solution architect in IoT company based in Melbourne. He also advocates several startups in Australia, Europe, UK, and USA. So mainly he's a visiting scholar in, he has completed a scholar program in Auto ID Lab in MIT, USA. So I'm also keen to take some insight from, personally, I'm also keen to take some insight from Dr. Athauda's session. Over to you, Dr. Athauda.
Thanks, AYMAN. I think it's a well-rounded introduction. You pretty much read the whole of my LinkedIn profile, I guess. So to start with, I think it's good to understand. I was just an undergraduate kid back in 2006 in the same university that you guys were in, or maybe some of you, some undergrads. Maybe I'm speaking to some undergrads. I have not fully aware on the whole audience, but I'm assuming it's the combination of both undergrad and the postgrad. So so my journey started in 2006 with that I'm speaking to just most of the lecturers that I used to know, including Jayamali madam and everyone else. So when I was joining in, I hardly even able to speak a couple of English words together. Like put a sentence together was one of the difficult tasks, because you know that the Sri Lankan education system, we don't have that luxury unless you have access to a good source of knowledge since the beginning of your school days. So, but then the university was pretty much my, I would say, the changing grounds. So what happened was university started throwing opportunities at me, and not just me, just everyone. But I think some people are just capable of taking it, and some people are just like, okay, maybe let's start running away from it. So it's your own perspective at that point, how you want to deal with it. But I think I took the first approach, which is started dealing with it and start seeing how I can generate opportunities out of it. So I think just to match with our today's topic, entrepreneurial mindset, it's all about being opportunistic. I mean, that's how at least I define it in my career. So I know that again, from the cultural perspective, when we see opportunistic, that can be go either way. There are positives, there are negatives. But I mean, being an entrepreneur, sometimes it's very difficult to put a line between these two paradigms. You just pick where you feel where the opportunities, and you started working through it, and you started put your blood and sweat and make sure that you can achieve it. Then you push yourself towards it. So, and that's what I did. So everything started with the I think we had, I don't know whether it's still there or not, we had an opportunity to go to the industry for a week at the end of the first year. And that's where I started building my network. That's where I started talking to managers, supervisors, operators, directors. We have been a bit lucky. We got a bit of overall training starting from quality department to merchandising to sales to everywhere that we can go as an intern. And then we had the 6 months undergraduate opportunity again at the end of level 3, at the middle of level 3. And things were very normal just for everyone else, just for me as well. But then when we started working on the final year projects, I think that is where I put my first step towards the entrepreneurial journey. I started thinking about what can I do differently than what other people are doing. So if I don't know whether Niles is here or not, but so he was one of my supervisors with Dr. Sanath and Dr. Sandhu. So what we did was we just told him, so we want to do something differently, and we don't know whom to speak to, what to do. So we did a bit of our own research. We had, I think, 5 members. It's very multicultural and multi-background team. And then we don't know where to start, and we know we didn't have all the skills we need as well, because if you're developing a smart textile product, obviously you need to understand the textile functions associated with it, which we are aware, but you still don't know the electronic side of it, because most of the textile graduates, the only electronic knowledge you probably have is what you get in your first year. So that's pretty much it, and everything else is pretty biased on the mechanical and material side of things. Not really, maybe a little bit of design, but not on electronics at all, as far as I remember. So so what we did was we started going out and knocking other people's doors and see that who is willing to support. And then we found a couple of engineers who were our batchmates from the electronic engineering. We were knocking a few doors in Mount Lavinia, trying to figure out a facility who can help us to do a bit of thermal bonding, and who can also provide some materials free of charge. I mean, I know free of charge is hard, but you should keep on pushing it, and that's what we did. So we pretty much use all the connections we had. We know this is our last battle. We have to win it one way or the other. So and that's what we did. I think we came up with a pretty good product, even though there are signal noises and things like that. And we did a good presentation. We did a functional presentation. That means the prototype was working while we were presenting. And so that was pretty much the first stage and the first struggle as an entrepreneur in my own definition, if I would say. And then what happened was obviously finding a job. Now, I think textile department is one of the luckiest department that industry come to us and just pick the brains, and then they just handing over the letters. Okay, come and join us in a particular date. So we had the same luxury. The good thing was I was not much prepared on that day because I was the field rep. So I was pretty much making sure everyone is going to interviews. We have a smooth flow of candidates going to every company and make sure that the HR teams are happy. They pick the people they want. Obviously, MS's brandings were dominating, as I don't think the story has changed even for today. And they were picking the brains, and I got an opportunity to join with MS Active. And then what was happened is that I'm not a typical apparel guy, even though you know that we have skills like sewing skills, which we learn throughout that 4 years as an undergrad. But then I always wanted to speak to people. I'm a people's guy. Maybe I should have joined HR, that technical. But that's what has happened. Luckily, I also can talk a little bit, even though not very good at English, even though when we were finishing our degrees. But industry has given me lots of opportunities to grow myself in those aspects. For an example, we knew, I mean, I remember Dr. Gunasekara was keep on saying that soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. I can't remember how many times I heard from him, but maybe more than 20, 30 times in my career. It's just, I didn't realize, I mean, to be honest, I don't think many of us actually realize till we really go to the industry and start facing the client. When you face Nike, when they come with another 5 to 6 different folks who has 7 to 8 different accents, and then you are like the technical guy who is holding a garment and try to explain something, what challenges you have with the tech pack and everything, that most of us just struggling because simply we don't know to put a couple of words together. And then it kind of reminded me that how fast we started, the environment has changed from university to the corporate. And especially, I think one of the things university were offering, which I managed to get some opportunities, is just join the clubs like ISEC, and then the rod track. Even I think the textile, the test itself, which I don't know whether we started or we kind of revamp it during our time, but that's all the work.
You guys.
So,
yes.
yeah, correct. So it's just so we did a lot of work. It's not just academics. I think that's something very important to remember. It's not just the academics at the end of the day. Academics is important. I'm not trying to dilute anything because I hold a PhD, so all thanks to academic and the first class I had. But it's at the same time, we also try to did a few things extra just on beyond the books and the lectures. I think that's very important because those skills that you develop in undergraduate studies actually help me a lot when I go to the industry. So by default, when everyone is struggling, even though my technical knowledge has not sound as the expert were working in the industry, they just had to rely on me to go and speak to people. So I simply had an advantage of having a good tongue and a good soft skill, then just became a go-to guy when I started speaking to with clients, which also helped me that to generate few more skills about how team rely on their resources, which is part of team building. I know, especially if you're in corporate, that you are being sent to training institutes, maybe under certain trainers to understand how you can build a team. But for me, I think mostly that has happened on the job, which is important. Maybe I was just lucky, I don't know. But I'm also trying to say is that I never shut down my opportunistic mindset. It's all about grabbing those opportunities and start looking at where I can make an impact. And something I also believed is the body language is very important, because when you struggle with your words, but if your body language is pretty solid, you still should be able to manage and convince someone. That's I think I had a kind of a hidden salesman inside me, which was helping me throughout. As Ayman just said, that I'm working as a sales engineer right now, which is not a typical job our engineers do, but that all help kind of throughout from undergrad and into the corporate.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. So my first question is, how would you make that undergraduate mindset into a corporate world? I mean, how it helps to your undergraduate mindset to fit into the corporate world?
I think personally, people who know me, they know this already. I think I just started celebrating small wins. That was a kind of a mindset, because it's not very easy without knowing how the industry works. But from the day one, as I said, that's the reason I highlighted about my level 1 experience in the industry. That 2 weeks actually changed my mind about. I had a kind of a realization. I always fit the framework of industry all the time. So I think it's all to do with what you personally believe. I mean, that's my story. That doesn't mean it's always your story. But what is more important is that you understand whom you are as a person and what is your strength, your superpower, where you fit the best. I think it's important you reflect about your skill set, most importantly, or if you know that you need to improve certain skills to achieve what you really like to do in your future, then just work towards it. And I think that's simply what I did. And that was my vision of corporate when I was an undergraduate. That made my life easier when I was at MUTA training interviews, plus when we actually had the interview with the team. I remember it was Yasas Samarkon from MAS Active, who was the Nike director at that time, with I can't remember, maybe 6 or 7 panel. It's a massive panel, and I'm just in the middle, and I have no clue whom I'm speaking to. But I think it went really well. It's simply that I was kind of prepared for that environment. I was looking for that opportunity. So it kind of managed to get through that without a bit of anxiety. So yeah, that's what all I had, I guess.
Right. So we would like to know that about the life at MAS. So you said you were there in MAS Innovation, and we would like to know that how you got inspired to do something different, and what are the risks and benefits in of that MAS Innovation, the life at MAS.
I think I just got handpicked. Maybe it was just my my luck. I was probably at the right place at the right time. But that has to be there, I guess. It's just as I said, that because of the front-facing role I had in the technical team, MAS Innovation was not built. It's just MAS RNI at that time in 2012. And when they were trying to set up the MAS Innovation, they started picking people from the business teams and the technical teams, because people who understand the business process front end, and you also need to understand and bring people who understand the back end from the technical side. So myself and Vishwa from the front end, Vishwa from front end, and I was from the back end, were picked from Active to set up the initial core team of MAS Innovation, which was a trial run for 6 months. We were working with consultants from US, and that was one of the massive opportunities I had personally, I think, even for MAS at that time, because that's why MAS has started their innovation journey in a big way. Even though they had RNI, it was not very had an impact for the overall organization, how they operate. But I think that turning point was in 2012. So the things were changing a lot personally and through the organization. And I suddenly got a recognition out of nowhere from Active. Like, everyone started listening to me. Everyone started challenging me, like, what you guys were doing? You guys going in the morning and coming in the evening? What you guys were doing? Because that's a question always, like, what were you working on? So we did a lot of work. I can't obviously tell the work we did, but we did a lot of work and also laid down the foundation to build MAS Innovation. I know that the name is keep on changing. I don't know which one they use now. I know it's Twinary, maybe more, maybe a few other words, but that was the foundation, and I was part of the founding team, which was one of the great opportunities that I had. And then that was moved back to Active, because obviously people had to transfer that knowledge back to the business unit at some point to change the culture. So I was just a culture changing agent suddenly, being a traditional technical guy, because I was seconded for innovation journey, and I had to kind of and make sure that the technology implementation and the MAS innovation teams in the business unit are taken care of. So I was heading the technology development team as Active since I resigned from MAS in 2017. I managed to work on pretty interesting stuff, lots of collaborators in Europe. And I also spent a couple of weeks in the Nike headquarters with Nike team building things. There was, it was supposed to be my boss or myself that had to go to that meeting. But eventually it was April break and he doesn't want to go. I said, okay, I'll go. so that's what happened. So again, opportunity landed and I took it. And obviously we were allowed to travel at that time. And that opportunity helped me to grow a lot in terms of understanding how a massive corporate like Nike works and your opinion matters a lot, because usually we have like a custom interfacing, like in apparel industries, always customer is thinking we should keep on working towards fulfilling their needs. But when you're working on a technology development, it's not the case. You can see the balance slowly started changing, and they started hearing your opinion, and they need your opinion to make sure that the decisions are being taken in a way that these can be implemented when the actual product is being developed. So again, turning point, there are 30 to 50, 40 different directors. Nike, everyone is a director, and I'm just was a senior executive, maybe, I don't know, as an assistant manager, just sitting in front of everyone and start explaining how things work. And was a pretty good, interesting experience I had in those 2 weeks in Nike campus. But again, this all just added up, because simply just I love taking opportunities and just putting myself into risk. And it is not all easy, as I said, that there were days that I actually cried. It's just simply just too overwhelming. I just can't handle it. And the pressure is on me, and the pressure is on my team. And especially if you wanted to present some of those opportunities that we need to work on, and there's lots of pressure coming from the business teams and from the board of directors. No, you can't do like that. You can't spend money like that. After working like 3 months, and in 5 minutes, when everyone said that, no, it's not going to work, it's going to hurt you a lot. So, so I've been there. So, which, again, I think that every opportunity, that every experience that I had just kind of mold me into a person who I am today. And it's keep on evolving, I'm assuming. So yeah, so the life at MA is pretty much, it's all about lots of struggles and lots of challenges and lots of opportunities.
So, and we would like to know that how you took a different path than others. Other entrepreneurs, normally they are taking a startup just after the graduation or like that. But you took a whole different path. You created a new road for the undergraduate, I think. So we would like to know that, can you explain that your PhD life and all, how it helps to make a new startup and all?
Yep. Okay. I think it's all started while I was an undergraduate. That's what I wanted to kind of elaborate my undergraduate experience. So while I was an undergraduate, I did my BIT, so the external degree, while I was doing my internal degree at the same time, which was a massive challenge in terms of sometimes the exams are clashing, and I had to work on, you're just going to the university and do the exam and take the bus 255, then go to the Columbia University to sit for the other exam. There were a couple of days like that as well, I remember. But it's all worth at the end. It's simply that when I wanted to do a PhD, again, that's my personal motive. I got when I was exposed myself to the opportunities out there, I realized that people give you a different stage when you have a doctor in front of you. That was simply my inspiration. Some people might say that, no, you should not say that in front, but that's, I'm trying to be dead honest. It's just, you have this DR dot in front of your name, you will have a different respect. And I just wanted to have it. So that was my inspiration. And then obviously I know that inspiration itself doesn't serve you the purpose. So you have to work towards that. So then I started approaching people and see that where the opportunities are and how we can help and how I can fit into their skill set. Because when you spend, I think I was 6 years and 3 months, I was working at MAS, my first job. And then I moved to my PhD. It's simply, when you were spending over 5 years in corporate, it was a difficult task to convince someone in the academic to give you a scholarship. So that was one of the challenges that I had. I know a few of my other colleagues who had the same hurdle, and we all got through it. I was the last to go, I guess, but everyone else got through before me. Maybe it was just a waiting of opportunities. It's just, I tried, I got half scholarship, was not happy, and got married. The risk got bigger, the challenge got bigger. And then I was like, oh, maybe that's not the way. I should probably stay as it is at MAS. I'm a happy man, not too much risk. I have a team who is working on. So everything was pretty calm and quiet. But then what happened was I kind of started building my LinkedIn profile. I think that's one of the best tools I invested personally. Even when you were asking me, Ayman, hey, Tharindu, send me your introduction. I said, okay, go and check my LinkedIn. So it has everything. So it's, and I'm still working on that. It's not that I have the perfect profile, but that helped me a lot for people to understand me as who I am, especially in the virtual world where the things are not very physical and you are far away from everyone. And that helped me a lot. In fact, my PhD opportunity actually came through LinkedIn. So I applied for an opportunity and it came, the reply came from my supervisor after 9 months. So I had so much patience, I guess, at that point. And that pretty much changed my perspective on corporate, and I decided to move to academics in 2017. A bigger change. It's not just moving to academic, also moving to another country and with the family and everything. When I was starting my PhD, my daughter was just 2 months old. So it was a bit challenging personally as well. But it all went well. The biggest challenge I had was, I don't know, some of you guys might know this already, that the areas that I took was completely non-textile. There's simply no textile at all. It's all about electromagnetic. So that's where probably Ayman has explained about RFID. So what I did in my PhD is developing ultra-wideband, which is from 2.9 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz. All of your 5G networks works on including ultra-wideband and the other bands. And then what I did was I developed sensors, environmental sensors that can work on different conditions like high humid, low humid, high temperature, low temperature, like in sub-zero temperatures. And then I assemble all of this to work as a food sensor. So it's completely electronics. I started designing my own PCBs. I started drilling and milling my own PCBs, started putting electronics together, started doing soldering, which I never thought I would ever do, to be honest. But it's a complete different perspective of life, and started writing small codes to run algorithms. And again, I had an IT degree, but what simply I did was just developing a website for my final year project. I never thought I would ever do a Python code in my life, but I did. So then in my PhD, there was an interesting thing happened. We had a collaboration with MIT in Boston, and my supervisor used to say that, Tharindu, you came from the best university in Sri Lanka. And there was a correction. I actually did my PhD in Monash, which is the best engineering university in Australia. As far as I know, the rank has not changed since then for the last 6 years. And then I got an opportunity to spend almost 1/3 of my life in MIT in Boston, so while doing my PhD. So what has happened was, again, the opportunity came, and there was an article in Monash notice board that there's an internship opportunity who would like to take it, because there's so much drama in it, in terms of the application process, very tedious, and the money, you won't get paid while you're doing this. So how you do all of that? I didn't give up. I first applied. First, you need to get through it, and made a good contact with the supervisor. They were happy with the work that I'm doing. And then applied for a couple of scholarships all around the university and got through a funding. I got $10,000 to go there. So I started working. Once you started working on that, you never stop. I started pushing myself, getting those opportunities. It was a bit more challenging again. Having a wife and kid here, we just got settling in, and it's not easy to move to another country and settle just for the 6 to 8 months. It's all a bit more challenging, but I just started seeing the opportunity side of things rather than the risk. And I'm still unsettled. I'm still in a rented house, but it just actually helped me to go and started grabbing those opportunities out there. So I spent 8 months, did 3 to 4 publications with MIT Auto ID Lab. So Auto ID Lab is a place where the RFID actually originated 20 years ago. So it was a founding lab for RFID. And they actually very much like the experience that I had from non-electronic background and started learning these things. while I was doing my PhD. Even this is one of the greatest thing I did while I was at MIT. I also did a small talk like this 30 minutes lecture for Harvard students who are designing wearable instruments. I don't think an undergraduate or a graduate from University of Moratuwa ever did that. It's just not, I'm just talking about myself. I'm just trying to say that these things are possible if you start pushing yourself. And yeah, you never see yourself as someone who is doing lectures in Harvard, but I simply got that opportunity to do that, and I did it. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did in my PhD. And the good thing is that I never closed down my opportunistic mindset while I was doing all of that. I was consulting few startups while I was doing that, and a startup in France, which I'm still helping them a lot. Actually, I'm going to see them next week. I'll be in Europe. So it just the opportunities, the opportunistic eye, the enthusiasm to knocking new doors, new opportunities has never shut me down. I was just keep on pushing, and I'm keep on doing what I like to do. And yeah, that's pretty much summarize what I was doing back then.
Thanks, Thandu. Thanks, Dr. Thandu. And we have some questions from the audience.
Go ahead.
Can you give some advice to the fresh graduates about how you should they shape up their university life in terms of academics and dedication for the work they do? I mean, can you give some fresh can you give some ideas for the fresh graduates?
So, I mean, okay, let me kind of rephrase the way that I answer for this. So I would say that there's not an ideal model that will work everyone, right? So it's simply what did work for me might not work for you. But what I could say is that don't shut yourself for the opportunities. It's simple as that. So the best thing what I did while I was an undergraduate is that obviously I had to take my priorities. My priority was to take a good rank at that time, like get a first class or a second upper. Actually, I jumped to my first class on the last exam. It was so tricky. If I didn't get a good grade in my final year project, I was doomed. I was just simply ended up with a second upper. My GPA was 3.700 something 41. I just jumped at the last hurdle. So it's just that I wanted to have one, knowing that the life will be better after that. So I started working on that from the first day. But again, I was not like a very, very strong academic. I know there are like super guys who are like pretty good at academics, but I'm not one of them. I have like a playful side of me. Always wanted to catch up with other guys, like going out, having a drink. Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's allowed to tell it that in a forum like this, but this is what we did. We enjoyed, especially the night we set up that TESS, the Textile Society, and we had a massive night. The people who had a lens of looking things were pretty unbelievable, but we managed to did that, and we enjoyed in a big way. So it was just like that. You go to the ground, play some football, have a good time with your friends, and obviously you have a family that who is expecting for you to do well. And but I'm simply saying that the balancing act is important, especially nowadays. Your mental health, not people are talking about it. It is very important. I actually understood the importance of mental health once I moved to Australia. I didn't realize that. It's that people say that if you push, the things will work, but you also need to understand where's your breaking point. So going back to what I said earlier, I think your personal goal should be set in a way that, and then you work towards it, knowing that what's your strength and weaknesses. So it's important to know your superpower. Whether are you a typical sales guy? Are you a technical guru? Or are you a people's man? So you just understand while you started thinking about you do a SWOT analysis for yourself. If things are not clear, just ask your closest friends that how they see things. It's not just about that. I'm saying that because once I graduated from my PhD, I took a completely different a run of setting up my own startup. I joined a venture capital firm. I'm not too sure how many people are aware on venture capitals. The venture capital firms are the one are actually providing you the pre-seed funding for you to set up your startup. So if you have a good team, if you have a good idea that can be turned into a business, they started giving you a certain amount of money to set up the business, and obviously they keep on funding you when you scale up the business. So I went through that line, and then I realized that we had, every week we had mental health sessions, and people started talking about how the entrepreneurial journey can be very challenging, but how you also, what is the risk you take, but not to burn yourself, your family, and your friends at the same time. So you should be able to break a line. There is no global definition how you do it. It's just when you feel exhausted, you should be step out and take a break and come back.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. There is another question. A student is asking about what is the most important path you took to be an innovator? I think.
I started looking at opportunities. I'm just going back to the same thing. So I think innovative mind, I know it's a buzzword nowadays. I mean, it has been a buzzword for a very long time. People try to use innovation as to get things done. But what I think is innovation is that that you do things not just at your ideation stage that can actually be implemented. So if you know how to make a product that you know it's going to work, but before you even do that, there are a few things you should be actually considering. For an example, that if you look at the startup ecosystem as a whole, in not just in Sri Lanka but globally, that there are very few companies actually founded by just one person. It's always a team. So I think your innovation should come with your team strength of how you can be successful together. And that's where most team actually fail as well. I think, again, I learned this from in my startup journey with Antler, that before you even because I know that there's a notion that you should have a great idea, because everyone pretty much have great ideas. And then you started narrowing down and pick one that works. But in my mind, that comes very, very late in the startup journey, in entrepreneurship journey. What you should first figure it out is that who's you going to build this work? Who will be your business partner? Who will be your co-founder? So first you figure it out, your personal traits, pretty much your strength and weakness. And then you started talking to people, started finding those friends, those co-founders that actually have a skill match with what you wanted to build. That's where I actually failed myself. So as I said, that my story is not about just being successful. It's all about an inspiration because of how I tried things and failed and learn out of it. So what I did was I had first 3 weeks of the program working with the one co-founder, then realized it's not going to work. Then we split apart, started working with 2 other guys we thought going to work. We actually got the initial funding of $160,000. But when we went for the pre-IC stage, then we realized that the team have different view on how the business should go. Then we have to hand over that whole $160,000 to the VC firm and start backing up. And we split the team and started doing an ordinary job. So it's just your team is very, very important. It's not just from your perspective, even from the startup investors' perspective. They're simply looking at how strong is your team before even talking to your idea is great or your solution is great.
So simply we should date the co-founders first.
You should. I mean, we actually said that as a dating session. So because I mean, if you're building a business, that's important as how you trying to find your spouse eventually. Because when I know that you first start having a blind date, and then you started talking to those potential co-founders and started realizing your strengths and weaknesses and whether is there any red flags to start with. I mean, just like how you have an arranged marriage, right? You see whether you see any red flag at the first stage, and potentially most of those co-founders will be going to stay with you for your whole life. So you should put the same amount of effort just as finding your person of your spouse or your potential person to marry, and you probably put the the same effort or maybe more effort to find your co-founder.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. So our next question is how to pick opportunities in white space. I mean, I think most of people are from the textile background, textile engineering background, but you did some stuffs are a little bit different to the textile. I mean, it's a combination of electronics and programming and all. So how do you pick that opportunities in a white space?
I think you should be looking at the mega trends, what's happening in the world. I know that there was a time when we were undergrads, again, I'm going back to where I started everything. The smart textile was a big thing. Everyone wanted to do smart textile. There were bit, and again, it was a bit of a buzzword. And but for us as a team, we wanted to make it more realistic and make it work, make it functional. So and then again, that's the first risk I took as an undergrad. I wanted to do things differently. And while I was at MAS, my first 2 years pretty ordinary, just a pattern maker, how to do the pattern. Again, the garment tech, converting a tech pack into a garment, like a pretty ordinary job most of our graduates do. But then while I got an opportunity to work with the MAS innovation, and then the things got a bit different. I started looking at, again, mega trends, not just me, just as a whole team. It just not, I did my things personally. But then whatever I learned from there, I started using to kind of to change the career that I want, especially that moving to a completely different field actually helped the work that I did as an undergrad, as well as in my time at MAS, because I actually have my name as one of the co-workers in 4 patents while I was at MAS, and those patents actually helped me to get my PhD. So this is how the things pretty much work, because especially if you want to jump to a PhD directly without having masters, the first things they will ask is that where is your publication? Just like any academic, first thing is like, what's your history? How are you going to prove that you are a worthy investment that we should start spending next 3 years of our money? So then the first thing I did was, sorry, I don't have any publication. The only publication I have is the one that I published as an undergrad. So pretty much our smart textile project that I had, I turned that into a publication, again, from the inspiration of Dr. Sandhu, thanks to him. And then the second thing was my patent. So I failed on the first attempt in my scholarship round because I don't have a history of publication. But the second thing, I just asked my supervisor, hey, sir, I have few patents. Does that even help? He said, yes, reapply with your patents, and I got through. So it's just, again, I also have an attitude of never give up. I think that's probably coming from my parents. My father is exactly like that. So he's pretty much my my personal inspiration to push things and get things moving. And talking about this mega trends going beyond, while I was working as a EMC engineer, there was a random guy talked to me through LinkedIn. He was saying that, hey, dude, we are setting up a company and we did some groundwork. Are you interested to work with us? And we're looking at a skill set pretty much A, B, C, D, E, F. And I know you fit most of it, but we simply want to know that whether you are interested on that. So that's how I started molding myself into the digital fashion. Started looking at things in metaverse. So we probably know Meta, Facebook, Meta. And so we are building up a startup, which most likely be commercialized within next 3 months. And we are building a product that can be used by influencers. We'll be launching in US and Tokyo at the same time. And I am one of the chief product officers of that startup, and I have a stake on that company. So it's just, I never shut down myself as a typical textile and or a wearable guy. When there's opportunities landed, I started looking at my risk and the things that I need to learn. And I quickly learned that and started grabbing those opportunities and see how I can be an impact into the organization. I mean, it's not that you have been opportunistic. It's all about the work that you do has to be impactful for the world and for the people who are believing on you that you will make an impact on their organization. So, and I think so far I never failed anyone.
Interesting. So there is another question from the audience. They're asking about the startup funding methods in Sri Lanka, especially in Sri Lanka. I think it's better to give us some idea about the world trend also. So what are the methods and all? But in Sri Lanka, we have only limited funding methods, no?
Yeah, that's, I think, well, I would say, let's think of it this way. So let's look at what options you have to start with. And because I'm not personally involved in any startup in Sri Lanka and who went through the funding route, to be honest. And even though the people that I know, like even Ayman yourself, that most of people actually burn their own personal bank account to get things from an idea to a product or to a business. So obviously, one of the first routes available for you is personal finance. You use your savings from your brothers, your mothers, and your parents, and started working on your dream. You believe it's going to work. And so it's also important that if you're financing yourself, that you do a massive due diligence. Check twice, check 3 times or 4 times. It doesn't matter, because you know you're going to burn your own money. So just like an investment option you consider, because you're burning your money thinking that your business will pick up and scale and you will get the returns. So think of the same way of how you think about building and own company, the same as how you think about an investment. So personal finance is obviously one of the options available. Many people do it. Many people did it in the past, and people keep on doing that in the future. The second option is with venture capital. I think there's one called Lankan Angel Network.
Yeah.
Yep, and they are pretty good, and there's a lot of money pouring into the startup ecosystem through them. I know a few of the guys who are actually working in that, simply part of my ecosystem development. I know what's happening there. And Antler, which I was part of, is also pretty big. They are pretty global. They are founding at least over 800 companies every year. So that's a massive number. So when I say founding, that means they're actually pouring money, $160,000 per company times 800. So that's a massive investment coming through those venture capital firms to the startup world to build things. And third option, which is what I was doing with my Metaverse startup, is the employee-owned startup, which means that you already build your cap table. The cap table means your share percentage of how things gonna split between team members. So the name of the 23 bowls means that we're gonna be always 23 people, not more than that. We will never grow beyond 23. So that's the foundation of a company. So you can kind of set up those ground rules in a way that if that works for you. But then we also decided we'll keep a certain split of the percentage if we need VC investment. So if we need some external funding, we'll keep a cap that we can dilute some of the company shares and start getting those money in. But every other percentage of the money will be shared across the co-founders and the rest of the founders. So there are a couple of founders in Sri Lanka actually was part of my 23 Bulbs company. I cannot name them personally, but I don't know. One of them probably here. One of them is actually from University of Moratuwa as well. So again, the ecosystem was keep on expanding, but these are the options you might have. I tried all 3. I burned my own cash. I went through VC. I got my money, but the team failed, so I failed. I never see that as a success story, but I learned a lot. But I'm also trying the employee-owned startup. So and I'm also advising another startup as a freelancer. So the French company that I'm working, I work as a freelancer while having a full 9-to-5 day-to-day job as a sales engineer here in Australia. So my life is pretty hard. Sometimes I sleep less just to make sure I have enough time to work while having 2 kids at home. So it's all hard, but somehow try to balance as best as I can without not losing any of the threads that I have in hand.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. So when I'm digging your LinkedIn profile, I saw some interesting stuff, like you are making some tactics to make the investor eye on your profile. So can you give some hints for the?
Yes, good idea. Good idea. Actually, I did a session in Monash University 3 months ago, simply on LinkedIn. I actually did a session on LinkedIn. They just asked me to. So what I actually do is that keep my profile very clean. It just anyone who comes and starts seeing my history of where I started, what I did, and how I evolved, and what my connections are. And it's not just help the recruiters or the potential people who are reaching me out, but at the same time, it's also help for the connections that I make. Because if I want to send a request to someone, I don't need to explain myself why I'm reaching you out. Because if you come to my profile and if you have a sense of understanding that why I'm reaching out to you, you probably understand, okay, this guy knows this guy has done that. So maybe that's the reason he's sending me an invite. So I simply try to just stand up on LinkedIn by having a very outstanding profile and investing time on that. Every day I'm trying to change something, especially if I want to speak to someone, I simply change my description just to match with my skill set according to the person that I'm reaching out to. So I'm not changing everything, but simply few wordings in a way that the people will understand what I can bring to the table. So that way, I can make things much more easier for the people who are approaching me. And it's not that camouflaging. I know LinkedIn can be a camouflaging setup as well, that you can put anything. There is no one verifying what you're putting in. But the people who are in your network, if you have a massive network, it's very difficult to lie or camouflage. And I have a network over 3,000 people on LinkedIn. Again, something I built from the bottom, and I'm still a regular member. I'm not a premium or email member, which means I haven't paid a single dollar for LinkedIn to get the networking effect. It's simply I built everything from my personal effort. So it's simply that customize your LinkedIn, I would say, to better fit into your network that you wanted to get into. That's what I do.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. I think it's better to ask a question from the Dr. Tharindu, no? From the audience. It is open to ask questions. If you have any doubts, you can ask in any language, like you can use any 3 languages. Dr. Tharindu will answer your questions. So if you have any doubts, clarifications, or any questions, you can ask.
As usual, our guys don't speak, isn't it? Maybe you can just send question on the chat if you're hesitant to speak.
Or else you can raise your hand. Then.
Thank you, Tharindu. Thank you, Ayman. Yeah, let me ask because I am very curious about your journey. And then let us know, Tharindu, if someone wants to go for a startup, what would be the first step in their thought process?
Finding a good co-founder, madam. I think that's the most important thing, which I learned the most in my career is that the co-founding is the hardest part. It's not the building a company. Building a company is easy once you have the right partner. It just from the investment perspective, the investors framework. I have even seen the questions what they're supposed to tick before they do the investment. The first thing is the team. So and 50% of the investment approval are coming after they are happy with your team. It's not just the idea or the business. So it's funny. I mean, all the things that we have thought is that, oh, I need to have a fantastic business idea. I'm going to make a prototype and then show. But from the investor's point of view, it's all about how risky my investment will be. Like, is it going to blown away in 12 months down the line? Or is it going to give me return 20% more in 3 years' time? So it's all about having the right co-founder with the perfect skill match or the ideal skill match as much as you can. Obviously, you will see the differences that you might not find an ideal one, but see the differences you might have with your co-founder are the compromise that you can deal with. Because if it's just like a red flag, like let's say that the two people are founding a company and one person is saying that, okay, we need 50% split. I think for me, it's a red flag. You should never start with the 50% if you're even if just two people, because obviously you are not going to fund your own company. So you should have a cap for the investors to come and dilute. So if it's 50%, it should be that, okay, if investors coming in, we're going to dilute equally. If we bring investment, this will be our valuation. So things like that. So I think overall, what I'm simply trying to say is the skill match that is the most important. So if I wanted to build a company, I'm being a typical technical guy. I mean, you might see me as a salesperson or HR person because I talk a lot, but in still investment mind, I'm a technical guy because I am the one who is having a PhD. So I play the role of a technical guy. Then I need another person with the strong skills of business development. So if my co-founder is another technical guy, that's a red flag for a investor. But if it's a strong business person who has done banking, who has done shipping, who was keep on selling things in retail for last 10 years, okay, that looks like a good match. So I'm just giving some examples from my own experience, what I have experienced in last year or so in my innovation journey or entrepreneurial journey with VC investors. Hope that helps.
Yes, thanks, Tharindu. I will give the chance to our students and the other audience to get some like guidance or some like how do you think, how do we start this journey as an entrepreneur?
Dr. Tharindu, I have a personal question.
Go ahead.
Right. We all are went through a same path, like in an undergraduate. So if you're, let's say, if you're an investor, so what are the additional, in addition to that undergraduate, the curriculum and all, so what are the additional thing you are expecting from a fresh graduate? I mean, as an investor. So what are the skills you have to modify, I mean, learn or modify?
The way the things are going right now, the biggest trend is you should know a bit of coding. I mean, it's becoming a bit more fundamental. And I'm trying to convince my 5-year-old that she should learn coding, but I don't know at what point she's going to agree with this. But I'm simply trying to say that the coding will become a part of your life. It doesn't mean that you need to learn Python from the day one or R plus from the day one and start scratching your head. And there are so much tools available out there that you can actually build things with no code. But you need to have an understanding of how the system works in order to use those tools. It doesn't mean that you just can't, you can just start running things by your own. So that understanding is very important. So I think my BIT degree helped me a lot to see things a bit more differently than the others. And then how the coding works, how the system build works, how each system pillars talk to each other works. And that pretty much is probably be a very, very essential skill. And then the other thing, what I also think, which is important, probably, I mean, soft skills is definitely important, but soft skill with the technical detail is super important, I would say, because as our undergraduate studies, you will be eventually come as an engineer. You are a product of University of Moratuwa as an engineer. So then how are you going to market yourself if everyone having a degree with the same tunnel? How are you going to be different to one another? So the things that make you different is obviously your soft skill and the other skills that are complementary for your engineering degree. And that's simply what I did. And I had my BIT degree complementary for the engineering degree, which helped me to get a job at MAS Active in a different way. And those, whatever the skills that I learned in my corporate actually helped me to get my PhD. And my PhD skills are helping me to shape my entrepreneurial journey right now and in the future. So that everything is kind of linked in a way. And none of the work you do is not going to be a waste. It's all kind of helping you to shape your life and shape your career.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. And so we have one more question.
Okay.
So if you're having any idea, how to pitch that idea to an investor? I mean, so what are the tactics we have to use? It's like,
Actually, I had a
is there
yeah,
any-
I thought of maybe we should do another session on that, because there are there's a tedious process of how you can shape your world. I mean, I can give you tips on how you can do a pitch deck. I can even show you some of the content that I did as a pitch deck for the investors. But most importantly, there are three things to understand from overall. If you are a co-founder or a founder that you want to set up a startup, so one thing is that start with your team. You should have a team. So no investor will spend money on an individual. It has also important that it should be either 2 or 3 people. It can't be 10 people co-founding at the same time. But the 3 is the right spot. That's what I heard from the investors. 2 is also a bit tricky because there's also a risk of splitting the company because of arguments. But when there is a third person, it also gives you a bit of leverage of discussion. So one person can still be the independent while other person having the dispute. So the 3 is the ideal number, but it can be very depend on what you guys were developing. And the second thing is the idea. So obviously, when you're thinking about what you're going to develop, that should be complementary to your skill set. So that's what the team is very important. So when you have the right complementary skill set, you can pretty much, your idea span is pretty wide. So then you can start picking those important things, considering the white space mega trends. So for an example, the metaverse, it's obviously a white space mega trend that is currently in place. Again, what you can do there, can you make complementary VR games? Can you complementary AR games? Or can you actually make something from textile that can be used in AR or VR games? So see how you can relate yourself, because our background is on textile, and how we can make the connection for what is already being developed or the developing with the skill set of coders and gamers. So, and you can also looking at in a way that what those applications will be. The current metaverse is completely digital. It's mostly started from the gamers, from the gaming industry, which is I think $9 billion industry in the world, and it's keep on growing. And the second most important industry for metaverse is an entertainment industry, starting from concerts to world tours to things you can do in a pub or a club, and how you can enhance the experience in entertainment. And then the third important thing that they expect is for the sports, so which is lots of textiles involved. So you can start thinking about how you can looking at those business opportunity in terms of bringing textiles related solution that have a way of communication with metaverse. How you do it, I'll let you to figure it out. I mean, I don't want to tell you everything, and this is what I do, but think like that. So you see the mega trend, but you might feel like, okay, we are far more distant than anything happening right now in the world. What the discussion that Elon Musk was talking about, the discussion that Bill Gates were talking about, it's far more than what we are doing in our undergrads. That's all right. That's always the case. I mean, that's the reason they are billionaires and we are undergrads. But how you're gonna reduce that bridge is that setting up what they're working on, and see what's your strength, and see that what relations you can make in between. It can't be obvious one, right? If it's obvious, everyone is going to build it. Then you will never be a founder. It will become a commodity. So if you want to form your own startup and your own idea into realization, you should start seeing those links or start observing those links that has not existed. So that's the second most important part. And the third important part is the validation. So even if you have an idea, you think the best solution is that, how are you going to validate it? Investors want to know that. What are the steps you want to use to validate this? It can be in terms of you go to a hackathon or the design sprint. I don't know how that really works in Sri Lanka. So in most of the startup world, you have like a meetup. You go and talk to likely-minded people, and then you pitch your idea in a lighter version. You are not telling the full story, but you tell enough for them to understand what you're working on, and then ask their feedback. So they will give you very critical feedback. Like if it's a very shitty idea, they will say it's shit, or it's not going to work. But they will also give.
Sorry for interrupting. That pitch is like an elevator pitch.
It could be elevator pitch. It just can be like a stand-up story.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be a pitch all the time, because most of the validation that we did is way more casual. You can go to a pub and start talking to the other innovators and explaining your idea. It doesn't need to be always that presenting in front of the other people. Those random chats give you so much insights of how you can shape your idea. So, and that's what we did, and that's what I did. And that validation is pretty important. But again, elevation pitch, good point. That sometimes you need to do things formally to get the proper feedback, which is also part of the startup journey. But before you go, that you need lots of critical feedback for your idea upfront. So the more feedback you get to shape your idea, which will be much more grown and very well-fledged by the time you reach the pitching stage to actual investor. So I would say, if you cannot formulate your idea into a solution and do the pre-validation, like at least talking to 10 to 20 different people to get that feedback within a span of 3 months, that idea is not going to work. So you should start jumping into another one. So if you start, again, the world is fast moving. The reason I'm saying is that the world is fast moving, and while you're thinking about your idea, someone is going to implement it. So there, the world is not going to wait for you. So if you feel like, okay, it's not going to work in 3 months, then it's not going to work, at least for you. Then you should start thinking on another idea that will work for you with the team you have in hand.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. I think still we have time now, Adam, for the question.
Yes, you can get few more questions, Simon.
I think it's better to ask question from Dr. Tharindu. Audience can ask any questions from Dr. Tharindu. Or if you have any doubts or clarification also, you can ask. You can use any 3 languages, or you can send it via chat.
Yeah, Singaling hand, ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මට හොඳට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් සිංහලෙන්. If you want.
Tharindu also Tamil, I think Ayman can help.
Yeah.
If our students, they would prefer to ask questions in Tamil, then Ayman can help and translate.
I mean, a golden opportunity අපව මේ වගේ resource person කෙනෙක් අල්ල ගන්න බෑ අපිට.
Exactly, yes. Tharindu, may I ask one more question? Because the graduates, then they, soon after their graduation, they would prefer to join with MAs or Randix or iDramani in the country. So then after that, because like to break, because then they see, then they expect the job security and then the good income and all. Then in your case, that you get the complete turned, and then you started your PhD and then moved to the different country and get all the risk. Then how do you think, then how did you break that mindset? And where did you think to leave the country and then go to that sort of startup process?
Difficult question, madam. I actually don't think I had a cookbook approach of how to do that. I just simply look at the risk, that how much of risk I can take without breaking myself, and also that the support system I had to take care. So I'll tell what I had when I was making that step. So when I got the opportunity, my wife was pregnant. So Tharindu, your PhD is, I got the confirmation of enrollment. You should start moving yourself by like in 3 months or something like that. But then the priority was to make sure that we'll get our baby, and then go through that process first, and then started looking at the PhD. So my mind was completely focused on one thing, while there are so many things happening in my background. So I think one thing that I was able to do is that, and do a couple of things at once, like multitasking, which is not a good thing, to be honest. I think that's kind of killing me in health-wise, but sometimes you have to. And that's kind of a transition period I had, and it also helped me to absorb the risk associated with it a bit more. So even while I was doing my PhD, I was consulting a startup. Again, a difficulty of managing time between a family, a wife and a kid, and then fully exhausted with a PhD with an area of I had no background knowledge. So it's first day itself, everything was Greek to me. I remember my experience on the first day. Actually, my supervisor invited me to a group meeting, and he said, "Hey, it's Tharindu. Hey, greet everyone." And then I was just listening to what they were saying, and I simply, frankly, I didn't understand a single word for that whole 40 minutes. And I came back home, and I told my wife, "Did I do the right thing? I have no idea what I'm doing." So, but then I also realized what I'm going to do things better, how I'm going to improve myself from that anxiety, that depression on the first day, to be a better person. So when I did my first defense at the end of my first year of my PhD study, my supervisor told me I did one of the best presentations of the department. So I changed being a guy who had no idea to a guy who can make an impact. I think my soft skills help a lot, to be honest, apart from my technical. So that mind shift is or the risk taking is part of based on what you can take and what is also complementary to your strength. So I knew I can defend myself in a situation like this simply from I can talk and convince people. And the second thing is that my family and my wife was in a very good understanding that we can take this risk together. So that's very important. If your wife is saying, "No, I'm going to stay in Sri Lanka, I'm not going to do it," doesn't matter how entrepreneurial mindset you have, that you have a roadblock which you need to figure it out. So I'm just giving you an example, though these are real examples of how people change the way they were dealing with their course. So so that was one of my biggest strength, I think, my family support. While I was doing all of this, sitting in front of a computer, dealing with all the global startups, my wife silently taking care of the kid in the background. So there was a little pressure on that end to me. So these were the risks and the benefits that I was jiggling with for the last 3 to 4 years. And so far, so good. It didn't burn us. As I said, it's good to know your borderline when it's going to really burn you. But so far, so good. We managed to survive. So I think that's all about entrepreneurship journeys. You only see the like if you hear any of the TED Talks, if you listen to any of the people who are talking on YouTube, that's all inspiration and the success stories. So my story it's not about success. It's all about all the mistakes I did, all the risk I took, and I got some reward out of it. So I managed to find a way that usually our undergraduate don't find, simply because they don't take those risks the way that I did. I think sometimes just people call me crazy, and I think it's a way of entrepreneurship is a way of craziness. You should be a bit of crazy to do all of this. Ayman might be agree with me.
Yes, absolutely. So simply you took a whole different path, like කවුරුත් ගිය නැති පාරක ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන. Like first you started a corporate job. Sorry, you took a good results in the university life. I mean, you have a first class and you have a good academic background. So after that you took a corporate job. Then only you have after that only you have moved to again to the academic career, no? Like
correct. Agree.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I did. Yeah.
So after that only you have started a entrepreneurship journey. It's like a whole different path, like a zigzag path, no?
That's true. It's moving, jumping to back and forth, and it's not that my academic life has completely disconnected. I still do have. It's funny that there's an opportunity I never took. I don't know whether this exists or not. So I actually got a postdoc opportunity at MIT. So once I finished my PhD, which was simply halted due to COVID, I think, because it was too risky to move to US in the early 2020. I submitted my thesis, then I didn't know what else to do. And then I was talking to my MIT supervisor. He said, Tharindu, come over. They actually had funding and everything ready to go. And but the problem was COVID hit at that time. So yeah, that was an opportunity I never took. It's simply due to health risk. So because we didn't know at that time how the COVID really going to play out. So and Australia was one of the safest place at that time. Different story now, but we were just closed down from the whole world. And I thought maybe from the family wise, that was the right thing to do. So again, there are opportunities. I said no as well. So yes, so it was also a zigzag, but we were still in contact with some other projects that I can help with. And yeah, the life moves on like that. And I never closed any of the doors. Even I still have very good relation with MAS. I know people, I have my friends, I know what's going on, and I still be in contact with them as well. And I'm still be in contact with our competitors. And yeah, it's just try to balance out everything as much as I can, being an individual.
And you never missed any opportunity you got.
Pretty much. I work towards it. Maybe I miss few without knowing this, but yeah, I think so far so good. So far, whatever landed on me, whatever I pushed, I managed to somehow get it.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu.
I think there are some people sending stuff on the chat, I guess. Oh, there was someone asking, is it okay if I read from the chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. I think the
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. If you don't know a co-founder with a suitable skill set and found one with the mutual connections, can you trust that person? Trust is something I can never give a recommendation. I think it's what we do is that you should do a background check for sure. I mean, just like that you're founding someone to marry, just do a background check. You know that in Sri Lanka, what we always say that go and check with your neighbors, right? And how they're doing, how your family is doing. But I'm not saying that do the same thing with your co-founder, but it's important to do the background check in terms of because trust is something it cannot happen overnight anyway. So the trust will happen over a long period of time when you build things, right? So it's unfortunately it's not very straightforward, but obviously what you can evaluate is their skill set. So if that person is skillful and that's the skill set you need for your startup, so that's always a green light to start the next step of communication. So that's something that I can recommend. But the trust is something it's very difficult to say, because the trust can be interpreted in many forms. It can be a personal trust, it could be financial trust, it could be about the secrecy of the work that you are doing. So it could be related to your intellectual property. So there are many ways that it can play out. So I think the best advice is that know your red flags up front. If you're already having a problem of trusting that person, maybe you should never even talk to that person. So and then you should have your instincts, right? So basic instinct, just trust it. It always tells you the right thing, at least from my understanding. There was another question. I was rejected in most occasions talking about connecting machine learning with Textile in my projects. But still, I think Textile and Apple has the most number of recorded data, and we can contribute in that path. What is your opinion about that? Depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, I need to know your end objective. It's difficult to say without knowing. Machine learning can be anything. Again, it's a buzzword. Are you trying to find a data pattern? Are you trying to use learning algorithm for something useful? So machine learning can be very deceiving, to be honest. When I use that word, my supervisor told me never use that. Tell what you intended to do from machine learning and use that as your phrase when you talk to people. So then it's more meaningful. When I heard about machine learning, like everyone used to say, wow, that's great. So what are you going to do with it? Yeah, do this, do that. Okay, that's data sorting. It's not machine learning. So that's what experts say. So when you talk to expert, try to understand what you're really trying to achieve. And if your approach should be, no, I'm just going to use machine learning with textiles and then try to do something out of it. No, what is your end application? And then say that, is that the machine learning what you should use, or it's just a data sorting algorithm, or you call it machine learning, and how much of iteration you should run to get some results, how much of data you should source to get that results, whether you need to generate data or whether you can just use one reference samples and multiply that data artificially. Million ways to do it. So I'm just trying to not to discourage, but also to give you just look at differently on your approach. Try to find the end application, what you're trying to do, and then see whether the machine learning is the way to go for it or not. I hope I answered the 2 questions that was posted. Happy to answer any more you have. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we can move on. I mean, we can move on from the session, Tharindu, since we have reached 11:30.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your valuable content that we shared with all the audience that we had. I think it's very inspirational for a lot of undergraduates that is there who are connected on this call. So I'll invite Kaveen to do the word of thank, and we can move on with the proceeding.
Thanks, MUTA. I need to add a couple of lines. Thanks, MUTA, for the opportunity. Thanks for Jaimali, madam, for reaching me out. I hope I explained whatever I can, and happy to share more in the future sessions if needed to. But this is more a generic way of saying that what I did in my last 12 years of my academic / corporate / entrepreneurial career. And I never know what I will do in another 2 to 3 years. But yeah, just keep pushing myself as much as I can. And by understanding without burning myself, but also taking risk. I think that's the way to go. And happy to contribute in the future if needed to. And thanks, Ayman. Thank you so much, man. You did a good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Tharindu. Even I got some golden insights from you. Thank you very much. I think Kaveen can do the vote of thanks, right?
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. First and foremost, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. THARINDU ATHAUDA, on behalf of the MUTA Executive Committee for sharing your valuable experience and knowledge with us today. A special thanks also goes to Mr. Ayman FIROUZE for moderating this session smoothly and sharing your thoughts on the subject as well. It was a really insightful session, and I'm sure our audience gained a lot of valuable knowledge on the entrepreneurial journey of Dr. Tharindu. It was a huge inspiration for all of us and will be helpful in shaping the future of our participants today. So once again, my sincere thanks goes to Dr. Tharindu Atauda and Mr. Ayman FIROUZE for taking time off their busy schedules to share their knowledge with us today. I would also like to thank our participants of today's session for their active participation. I hope you gained something of value from the session, and hope to see you all in the next MUTA webinar as well. So thank you everyone once again, and have a nice day.